I had really begun to understand the science and the mechanisms and how we go from being in a state of gratitude to becoming a trait. Okay, if I'm feeling that I'm an imposter, where is there evidence that I am? So we always say with awareness comes choice.
Yes.
So if I'm unaware of something, I have a choice. I can remain unaware, or I can explore it and try to figure out what is it, how is that speaking to me?
By just acknowledging the presence of the moment that we're in right now, to then be able to allow us to have a conversation, that to me even seems like a great starting point of acknowledgement of gratitude.
What is an unspoken word about women in leadership today that we need to speak about?
Hey everyone, do me a quick favor and double check that you are a follower or subscriber wherever you listen to the show. I'd be unconditionally grateful. Every new follower, listener, and subscriber helps us keep creating content we love and that you enjoy. It's the best way to ensure you never miss one of my Unconversations. You are on this journey with us, and thank you for that. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Unconversations podcast. I am your host, and today is going to be a big learning experience for all of us. And I am thrilled to welcome Linda Roszak Burton. She is the president of DRW Coaching. Linda, I'm going to go with theme, truly grateful for having you on the show today. Really, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Allison. I'm grateful that we've had this chance to connect and talk about something that I know we both feel very strongly about, and hopefully your viewers will as well.
Oh, I think they're going to. And I think for me, I'm telling you, the word grateful, and we're going to really get into what that is. Since you and I talked and met, and then we met again for our prep meeting, I am constantly checking in with myself and doing the deep and reflection work that I do all the time. But you have definitely put this word gratitude in a different section of my mind, and I cannot wait for us to explore really how you got into this topic about grateful and gratitude.
Yeah. It's another level to our reflections.
Yes.
That if you pay more attention to it, it becomes quite natural.
You're right. And it's going to be something you're not constantly thinking about. It's going to sort of take a natural, and I think there's also some chemical feelings around when you truly are feeling the level that you will discuss further throughout the podcast with us. So, but let's start with the Unword effect. And what was your process and thoughts around it, where you came up with the 3 words that we'll get into individually?
Well, the process was harder than I expected. My first response was, all right, what do I need to turn into a negative? And then the discovery came where really it was a much deeper reflection, not so much on turning a positive into a negative, but you raise this level of consciousness that we don't often go to because we're on such an autopilot all the time. And so I really had to stop and think about, if I were going to say and attach un to an emotion or a thought, what would that be? And that was a process that took a little bit, and finally I came down to three. I came up with some others, but process of elimination, what really maybe didn't resonate as well, allowed me to come up with the three.
Wow. So let me ask you this. So, uh, was there any other sort of internal feelings you were having as you were trying to come up with these words besides the negative? Because I've had some leaders where they've talked about some of these words where there was some sort of sense of power or strength in some of the words that they've chosen, or where they've talked about an overcoming of something. So, to your point, there was a negative or an experience they went through or experiences, which then has turned their unword into something more powerful for them. Was there any type of experience around that for you?
Well, it was because it turned into more of a strength, right? To think about um, my words, so I could apply them as a strength. That aware. So we always say, with awareness comes choice. So
Yes.
if I'm unaware of something, I have a choice. I can remain unaware, or I can explore it and try to figure out what is it, how is that speaking to me. So what it did allow me to go quite deep, and I did look at past experiences where these words kind of showed up, and I didn't put the I didn't have that presence of mind at that time. I might have thought of that word.
Wow. Yeah, that was a very similar experience to mine as well. My three words that I had when I first started my unaffect journey, the unword effect journey, was they were. I definitely was looking at it from the standpoint too of how do I overcome some of these
Yeah.
negative experiences that may have been controlling some sort of my life or life experience.
Right.
And I spoke on another podcast where I'd probably say over the past 2 years that my unwords most definitely have changed and shifted through just my own internal work, where I would say some of those words would definitely be much more from a grounded and
Mm.
strength perspective. So,
Yeah.
thank you for sharing your process. And I think that's a perfect segue to go into your first word, which was unaware. So, what was it within your kind of bringing some context of why that word for you was, yes, this is definitely one that I want to share on this podcast?
Well, for unaware, what presented itself was how unaware I was about what we'll get into in a moment is the transformational power of gratitude. And so we're raised to say thank you in whatever language we speak, and and it's one that it's a good lesson to learn. It's one that we carry through our life, and sometimes that only goes so deep. And so even when I was raising our kids, say thank you, right? And so it's an awareness, but we become unaware that it goes so far beyond that those two words, or appreciate, or however we might use the word or show that sense of appreciation, that we're really unaware of what seems to be such a simple emotion, to how complex the science has really revealed that it is so much more. And it's been a part of humanity for eons. And I just found it to be something that I'm so unaware of, that I was actually glad that I discovered it, although discovering it wasn't through a great experience. And I
Hmm.
know we'll get into that as well.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah. let's, I know there's so many other questions I want to say, but I think I want to save it because I feel it's going to go into your gratitude coaching journey. So let's go into your second word, which is unspoken. And that, the way you described unspoken for yourself, I thought was probably one of the most introspective uses of unspoken that I've heard leaders talk about, that one in particular. But I think because it had such a deeper meaning, probably because of our topic around gratitude, is probably why the way you sort of phrased it and how you came up with it, I thought was really quite powerful. So please share unspoken for us.
Unspoken actually took on a couple of meanings. Unspoken was what have I been unspoken about, and not just from terms of gratitude, but from my own personal growth and development, how I want to create really strong and healthy relationships, what might be unspoken there that I need to speak of. And then unspoken from the perspective of gratitude is how it is so easy because we have 24/7 distractions. Mm-hmm. It is so easy to really not speak the words that make life so rich, that make our days even better than we give them credit for. And so the unspoken really went into two different areas. One for what am I not, what's unspoken in me, and the other is what's unspoken in the terms of the importance of gratitude for myself and for how I interact with other people and how I coach.
Yeah. And I have, as I mentioned to you before we even started the podcast today, was just you, even in the emails that you have written to me, I just reading yours, I just feel there that you live, breathe gratitude, and you mean it so intentionally, which is why I'm excited for my audience to really hear, because this goes well beyond just saying thank you or I'm grateful and appreciate you returning an email. I mean, this has a lot of, for something so simple as you said, it has a lot of deep complexities to it, mm-hmm. if you will. So your third word, which I don't think anyone has used this yet, and it really struck me in a very cool way, was underutilized. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Thank you. Yeah, that also went into a couple of different directions. Initially, as underutilized, I was thinking about what of my own talents and skills are underutilized and why. Am I doubtful that those skills are going to make a difference? Is it that imposter syndrome? Well, yeah, I know what I know, but if I don't 100% believe in it, then I'm underutilizing what life has taught me, what I've learned, what my journey's been all about. And then underutilized because of the value that I put on the science of gratitude. It's underutilized because we sometimes walk through this life with blinders on, and kind of it opens up the aperture, if you will, of how we could better utilize the strength that comes from gratitude.
Linda, I am so happy you explained it that way, because I may have a lot of people that may disagree, and if you do, please let me know. But I feel with this term imposter syndrome, mm-hmm. that it is an excuse that we use to explain why we can't do something, then I love your word of being underutilized, because I think that even it helps us look at that a different way, that we have these skills.
Right.
And yes, the imposter syndrome, you may feel some inadequacies of maybe why you feel you can't play in this space, but then to even take it a step further of why you feel that way, and you may
Right.
have the skill set
Right.
to do it, and to focus on that and realize, wow, I am underutilizing my skill sets, my what I'm bringing into my family or my friend relationships or within this podcast, whatever the case may be. So when you were saying imposter syndrome, I feel it took off because people felt like it was something that they could identify with, and but then it stopped. Like, okay, I have imposter syndrome. Okay, what do you want? What do you want to do? What does that then mean? Because yes, you can have anxiety, and yes, you can have depression. Yes, those are great ways to describe something that may be going on, but then digging a little deeper about what those
Right.
specific things
Right.
that are in your life that are contributing, possibly.
Yep.
It could be medically, it could be personally, it could be
Yep.
whatever the case may be. Do you feel there is some agreement on that with you, with what I'm saying in regards to imposter syndrome and sort of the underutilized
Yeah.
as how you explained it?
Yeah. Well, the origin of that started just in a research project. I can't remember the university, and it just took a life of its own. But it's a great paradox because
Yeah.
we don't believe that we have certain talents and skills. And then if somebody comes along and says, "Oh, Dr. Allison, you are so good in really understanding the perspective of others." But the imposter syndrome says, "I don't believe you." So we don't
Right.
believe ourselves. We don't believe the, and so it's where does it get us? It gets us nowhere, but stuck and underutilizing what we have to offer, what we can do for ourselves and for others. So, yeah, it's you could probably put imposter syndrome into Google, and you would have hundreds of thousands of articles, etc. So I think what we need to take a look at is, um, okay, if I'm feeling that I'm an imposter, where is there evidence that I am?
Right.
Right? And
Right.
I mean, I don't think we have to go very far to realize that we don't have a lot of evidence in our lives that say that we're not who we are.
Right. Right. Yeah, I would agree with you. I just, when you were talking about it, I thought it was a great, interesting parallel
Mm.
to talk about, because as I said, I think when you're talking about you as a person being underutilized, and finding out what specifically that means, and doing the deep work to find out what that is. Um, I'm not saying that there is not any truth to imposter syndrome. I have
Yep.
no reason besides I love talking to people to put together a podcast, but I never went to school for it. I never did any of those things. I didn't know if I was going to be good at it. So yeah, maybe there was a bit of imposter
Sure.
syndrome because there's been people that are in this space. But going deeper and figuring out what that was about. What
Yeah.
does that really mean? Does that mean, am I afraid I'm not going to get anyone to come on the show? Do I
Right.
feel maybe we're not going to have a good format that people are going to be interested in having, certain level of conversations? That's bringing some light into possibly uh, what the imposter syndrome may be.
Yeah.
But to your point, if I didn't go through that experience, then I do feel that I would have been underutilizing my
Hmm.
skills to be able to bring this
Yes.
to the world. So I thought that
Yeah.
was just a great parallel for you to bring up.
Good. Yeah, yeah, I agree. The fact that I have this knowledge that I want to bring to the world. If I underutilize that, then I'm not really making an impact that I really believe I'm here to make.
Yeah, and you definitely are. I first wanted to talk about the name of your company has a very special meaning to you. And so I wanted to give you an opportunity to talk about that. And then I think that will be a beautiful segue for us to begin to talk about how gratitude is such an important part of your coaching journey,
Hmm.
and one personally for you, but two, in how you felt this topic was so important, and the research behind it, to have it be such an integral part of what you are doing in your business, which is why I found you to be just an extremely unconventionally excellent leader.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, DRW were my sister's initials. And she passed away at 41 to breast cancer. Shocked all of us.
Mm.
And um, so it was the process of going through the grief after losing Debbie that that journey, not an overnight one, but a long one, really brought me to find something really good about such a tragic loss. And so in my coaching, primarily my executive coaching is grounded in research in positive psychology and neuro leadership. And so I would always take a lot of my research on in those topics and bring it into the coaching experience. And as I kept up with that research, I began to see more and more on the science of gratitude. And so the way I work it is I read about it, I learn from it, I write it, and then I apply it wherever I can. And I had been doing this, and there was a birthday anniversary, Debbie's birthday anniversary, um, and I sat down with a journal. Now, I never journaled before Debbie passed away, had no interest. And so on this one birthday anniversary, I decided, let's just look back at my entries. And what I realized was that they were very dark. Um, it wasn't even a search for why because there's no answer to the why.
Mm-hmm.
But it really was where I became almost obsessed with the how dark the world had become for not just me, but for Debbie's family, all of our family, and and I really believe there was this aha moment that we talk about in neuroscience, where there's just this thought that hits us like a brick wall, and the term gratitude heals came to me because of course I was grateful that I had her in my life. Wasn't grateful about the short part of that. And of course I was grateful she was no longer suffering. But that was pretty skin, there was nothing to it, no depth to it, very shallow. No more than the breath it takes me to just say those words.
Mm-hmm.
But I think because I had really I thought considered myself grateful, but because I had really begun to understand the science and the mechanisms and how we go from being in a state of gratitude to becoming a trait, just how we are, who we are.
Linda,
That
can I ask you a question about that part?
yeah,
Because I think you're right. I think when someone is sick or people die of natural causes, whatever. The grief can of course be very different for everyone. And for you, when you were just explaining the gratitude, that yes, your sister no longer was suffering. You are those norm? Do you find in our brains that we are just trained in a way to do those initial check the box things off just to sort of calm and
Yeah.
heal ourselves,
Yeah.
meaning just quickly, like
Right.
that's the first quick thing that
Right.
we end up doing, because you hear people always say, I'm happy they're not suffering, they're in a better place, and I'm grateful, or I've gratitude for this. So those are the things, as you
Yeah.
said, sort of roll off the tongue.
They do.
Is that one of the just kind of first stages that we sort of get into when we're just sort of saying
Yeah.
gratitude, but we don't really know the
Right.
depth
Right.
of truly what that is.
We don't. I think it is an initial stage because it's a fleeting moment, right? Positive emotions are very fleeting.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a fleeting moment. It may even, maybe it's in nanoseconds that it's measured, where logically we know, right? But the grief is such a strong emotion that it just, the waves come crashing in again.
Yes.
And so, yes, that I believe many people are rationally able to say she's no longer suffering, but that's, in some ways that's more harmful than helpful,
Mm-hmm.
because it's a patch, and patches, they don't work, they don't
Yes.
stick for long.
Yes. Yes.
And it just could be part of our own survival. Let me have a breather because I'm underwater and I
Yeah.
can't get to the surface. And when I get to the surface, I have 13 seconds to catch my breath. And
Yes.
it's,
Yes.
yes, right. She's no longer suffering.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And then, so you're dealing with a grief. What was sort of your journey like, where that light bulb for you started to go, wait a minute, there's something deeper here with
Mhm.
this gratitude. When was it sort of within your, because we talk about the 5 stages of grief, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
And where sort of were able to go, okay, maybe this gratitude isn't a bunch of bullshit. Maybe there is something really, you know what I mean? Something really deep that I want to uh, explore. There is something there that I feel like I'm really missing.
Well, I think it's the acceptance. And it's non-linear when you go through those stages, right? And
Of
so,
course.
yeah, I can accept it, don't like it. Yes, I can accept it and I can try to understand it. And yes, I can
Mm-hmm.
accept it, and now I can recontextualize it for myself, which is really the aha moment for me, because I could still think of the loss in very painful ways, still do,
Sure.
but more I'm much more cognizant of what I do with that thought. Do I go to the default,
Mm-hmm.
or do I acknowledge how I feel? Yes, I'd never want to suppress that. And what different story can I attach to that, or what refrain can I attach to that? So it has to be very genuine. It's not a simple matter of saying, yes, she's no longer suffering, and I'm moving on.
Right.
or yes, she's no longer suffering, and yeah, that's life. Um, it's yeah, we have to reframe it in a way that we actually accept our vulnerability and accept that we we have control over how we're going to change.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and that is a definitely a journey to go through, and everyone would experience that journey very very differently and
Mm.
internally. Help me and the audience understand what gratitude is,
Mm.
because I think that I think gratitude normally comes up when it's Thanksgiving and everyone goes around the table and says, "Hey, let me know what you're grateful for," and we go,
Yep.
we're there. So because I think this topic, just so we can put some context around, because you have done a ton of research around this, and two, you have also made this a huge part of your coaching
Right.
practice.
Right.
And if there wasn't something really there, I don't think you would try to make a living off of this. If it wasn't something that internally people are really screaming
Yeah.
for, we may not know how to
Right.
verbalize it, but I think people internally are really wanting this. So for our audience, if we could put some sort of context
Okay.
around it, if that would work for you.
The rock star of gratitude, it's called the father of gratitude, is Dr. Robert Emmons. Who the story is he showed up late for a faculty meeting, and the only topic for for research that was left was gratitude. He was like, "Oh no." um, uh, and he's now retired, but what he started was a global study of the science of gratitude, because you could go to almost any country and there are academics or scholars who are doing research, are throwing darts at it, are saying more research needs to be done.
Mhm.
And so when Dr. Emmons first started, his definition was a recognition a recognition of goodness outside of ourselves. So an affirmation that something good is happening here, and a recognition that it's coming from the outside. And I listened to a lecture of his probably three years ago now, and he now defines it as the deepest touch point of human existence.
Wow.
And yeah, that's where it goes. And thank goodness, because that touch point is something that we have to strive to get to almost every day.
You have love, right? That everyone
Mm-hmm.
would say would be the a pinnacle touch point.
Mm-hmm.
And he's saying gratitude. And I was not expecting to go that deep, and it just popped into my head.
Yeah.
Uh, but we strive for love, and that's a whole nother podcast that we could probably do with all the intricacies of what love really means,
Mm-hmm.
look like, feel like. But
Mm-hmm.
I feel that gratitude almost has the same depth of layers
Yeah.
as, let's say, love would. In your experience, could you shape an example of when gratitude in regards to the passing of your sister, let's use that as an example, sort of appeared to you, where you were using it on more of a meaningful and deep level,
Mm-hmm.
where you were maybe understanding
Mm-hmm.
that touch point that he's referring to?
The deepest human touch point of to me is of human existence is that is how deep I went with my love for my sister.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I can go that deep, it allows us to go deep with other people in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
And so which is so I don't know that I would just keep a kind of love and gratitude at the same as two levers, not one better than the other.
Sure.
I know that what I was grateful for was the love that I had with my sister, and we were true soulmates.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the touch point was that there was such a gift that if we could touch other people's humanity, that we would all be healthier, we would all be happier. We would feel love, perhaps like we've never defined it before, but we would feel love of each other. And it's going to sound so cliche, Dr. Allison, but love of mankind. I mean,
Yeah.
right? It is deepest. It is the deepest touch point, because when you can even feel grateful for love that you have experienced and the pain that's come from the loss, or gratitude for the love that you have that makes you feel like you're alive, like you're living a life well lived. To me, that I don't know how I could go deeper than that. That is kind of where I went with my experience.
And that's a huge journey
Yeah.
to go through. And I think that's where I really wanted the audience to be able to kind of understand what that really meant for you personally, because I think sometimes we don't allow ourselves to go that deep because of the, I never really thought about this, but sometimes the gratitude can be so painful, but then it can also be really rewarding and satisfying, and offer more comfort than maybe what we thought.
Right.
And that's where you really helped me even understand. I've talked on my podcast before about certain trauma that I have gone through and experiences. And I will tell you, many years ago, I don't think I could have ever used the word gratitude in the same sentence to describe what happened.
Right.
But because of, I don't even think if I hadn't met you that I would even use the word. But I can really say that there is gratitude. But it did take a long time and a journey to be able to get to that place, to truly understand that, as horrible as those experiences may have been, but once the clouds sort of move away and dissipate, you
Right.
are able to see and allow more gratitude to come into your life. Would
Right.
would you agree with parts of that?
100%. It's a long journey, and it's one that, we use the term practice with gratitude, and
Yes.
it is something that we do want to practice, because there's, life is hard, and I see a lot of suffering, and when you think about the deepest touch point of human existence, if we look at somebody that we might consider our enemy, maybe that's too strong, or somebody that we have judged in an unfavorable way. If we were to think about their humanity, I mean, getting very philosophical here, but if we can look at someone in the same way we want people to look at us, then I think go deeper and deeper into the touch point. It's like, we're all looking for some enlightenment, right? Something that keeps us going, that makes sense of it all. And yeah, I think the power of gratitude has the ability for us to recognize suffering in ourselves and in others. I'm not even going to put a degree on that suffering, because I think you've said it before, we never know what people are going through.
Sure.
But if we can meet that with what we're feeling, what they're feeling, and what could we take out of that to be grateful for? I mean, that's a conversation that I would love to have with more people. When we really feel like there's nothing in common, or I don't get it, I don't get you, what would gratitude be able to open up in terms of how we feel about ourselves and others?
Well, it seems to me, it's interesting because we always talk about effective communication. Only if we could just communicate better, things would improve, right?
Yeah.
Sort of along the lines that you're talking about. It seems that if you can at least have gratitude for the moment that you're in this moment,
Right.
and then be able to then have a conversation with somebody by just acknowledging the presence of the moment that we're in right now, to then be able to allow us to have a conversation, that to me even seems like a great starting point of acknowledgement of gratitude.
Yeah, thank you for making that so succinct after I started kind of wandering off.
Oh, thank you.
Well done.
I'm a good student.
You're a good teacher.
I'm a good student. Thank you. Do you have anything else to add to that? It just made me just think about, just in practical purposes, which I do have a question in a moment around that, but just for some sort of tangibility of gratitude, it would be just being able to be grateful in just the exact moment.
Yep. Right, which takes practice to do, because this afternoon there's going to be something else on the calendar. This evening there's going to be something else to do or say, and so it is being able to build in that awareness of what we're feeling or what we could feel in terms of focusing on gratitude, and and what do I want that response to be?
Yeah, and I also, when you're talking too about this, I got done with a call and I was like, what the hell does this person want me to do? But I stopped after I did a moment of like, you got to be kidding me. Went through this whole thing in my head. I did. I stopped and went, if this experience or this person didn't bring something actually to my attention, then it helped me then frame. Like, I was able to stop and after I got out of the whole emotion of everything, right? I was then able to take a moment and go, wait a minute. So I was able to then turn that experience in my head and fairly quickly, of that there was gratitude for bringing something. And I think that's kind of the point that you're sort of bringing up. And I know this can go way down a deeper path, but and just for the audience purposes, just being the awareness, bringing, as you were saying, the unaware of gratitude, and the awareness of how gratitude could really be just extremely impactful in how you approach a relationship, how you approach a situation, and even how you view a situation. On how something, because once the emotion, as I was saying before, dissipates, you can then take a step back and review that situation and be like, whoa, there was some sort of insightfulness that came out of that. I want to ask you, and please, if you can, once this topic of gratitude, let's talk personally, because as you and I were just talking briefly before we started the podcast, I think you need to have not a PhD in gratitude by any stretch of the imagination, but let's just talk about the awareness. I feel that in practicality, let's kind of talk about that for this purpose, that, what someone can begin to do to invite the acknowledgement of gratitude into their life. Let's start with that first, because I don't know if you could bring this into other aspects of your life, if it's something maybe you're not doing for yourself internally.
100%. It's got to start with ourselves. And there's a sometimes I refer to the term self-gratitude, which some scholars don't believe is an appropriate terminology. But I think the actual flip side of self-gratitude is self-compassion. So we have to start with ourselves, because we can beat ourselves up pretty easily. Right? Oh. We don't need anybody else to do that.
I think I could have written a book about it. Yeah. I think I could have written a book for sure. Yeah, definitely.
Right. Yeah. So if we have a little self-compassion for ourselves, then I think we're able to say, there's some self-gratitude in, how I've approached a difficult relationship or a difficult situation, or, self-gratitude in the fact that, I didn't follow through on my workout routine as well as I wanted to, but I can get back on the horse, right? So it's that the self-gratitude for what I already have. What physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, personally, what is it that I have as an individual that makes me who I am, and why not feel grateful for that? It's not selfish. It's really reflecting that. Maybe that goes back to the unaware, because there is so much that we have to be grateful for in who we are as a human being, and every aspect of who we are. And we take it for granted, I guess. Hey, I got good eyesight. Okay, so why take that for granted? What can your eyes teach you? What can you learn from what you see? Go to an art gallery, and I went to an art gallery once with a brilliant person, an art historian, and she asked me to look at this picture. What did I see? Well, I never looked so hard in all my life. And I still didn't see everything I was supposed to see.
But it was almost like a Where's Waldo? Is that what you want me to do?
So I don't know, maybe I'm going off on a tangent, but the self-gratitude, whether it's any dimension of our well-being that we can be grateful for, I believe is also the flip side of self-compassion, to be kinder to ourselves. So that's where it does start. Absolutely, it does start. And I often think of what the ripple effect could be or is, and that ripple effect is if I'm showing up as a grateful person, if I'm grounded in that value or strength of gratitude, um, I know I benefit. There's health and well-being benefits. There's leadership benefits. But who else does it benefit besides me and what I do? And why is that meaningful? So that's where you get into more of the depth around the practice of gratitude. Because what do you say beyond thank you? How many times do you stare at a thank you note and you think, what am I going to say? Thank you for the candles and coffee? It's like,
Right.
yeah, right. So applying how we would uh, be grateful for what we have, what we've been given, and then applying that to the other people in our lives really creates that sense of genuine, um, feeling genuine gratitude, and also what leads to that reciprocity. Because we feel so good when somebody that has expressed gratitude to us that innately we want to offer that feeling to someone else, and
Right.
that's that reciprocity.
Right. You there was something you said that I thought was interesting, and I just want to go back real quick to that, where you mentioned, and again, I'll paraphrase, and please correct me if my paraphrasing's a bit off. But where you said that was the scholars, if you will, were feeling was that was selfish.
Yeah, they didn't feel that self gratitude was a term to use.
That I find that interesting because I had a conversation with a few leaders around the word selfish, and the interesting dichotomy around what being in the way a few of them were sort of talking about it was, sort of around the selfish, but around self care,
Mm.
where if you are not able to um, find self-care and taking care of yourself in a way, how would you be able to do that for other people? And
Right.
so I think that almost goes along with the same idea and awareness
Mm-hmm.
of, because I think we've coined selfish as being a bad term to say, when
Mm.
in my opinion, I feel through my own journey that there's a lot of benefits to being selfish. So then I can show up in with more strength, more positive, with more
Yeah.
gratitude in
Yeah.
situations. So we've been taught on what these words should mean in this contained
Right.
box, which is why I think you're saying you could go down a lot of spirals on what these words really mean. But I do feel that's why I was curious in what the scholars were saying, and I'm not sure if the involvement, or the evolution of the word to where you know we tend as humans to kind of make words have
Mm-hmm.
certain meanings for ourselves. But I did find that word of selfish to have some positive
Yes, I
to
like
it.
that. Yes. Yeah,
That
I
I thought
agree
it was
with that.
very I thought that was very interesting word, and I think also with gratitude I think could have the same. I think there is that self-awareness that um how can you really give something if you truly don't understand the the
Right.
meaning behind, like you said, thank you. um
Yes.
it made me think about when you were talking about my parents saying, say please. Well, when I was a kid, I wasn't saying please because I really wanted to say, I wanted whatever they were going to give to me. So I would say please.
Yes.
um and so there was in my head there was an agenda. It was like, well, say please and then
Yeah.
you can have
Yes.
it.
Yes.
It wasn't say please because I was genuinely, being kind.
Yes.
I learned way
Yes.
different about that. I have a whole different thought around that. But I think that still brings up kind of the point you're making. I did want to make sure we save some time to touch on this because especially in today's world that we're in. And, leaders in corporations have a tough job. One, they have a tough job just, keeping people employed. People are having to work with less financial resources, other type of resources. You could go down the list. How do you find that as leaders, not just within companies, but also out, that we can truly begin to model gratitude?
It goes right back to what you said, Dr. Allison. It has to start with ourselves, right? And so we probably have more people than we could count that consider themselves grateful, right? Leaders, co-workers, and to some extent, that's true. If we allow ourselves to really think about it beyond just a transaction, a statement that we say, or a high five that we give each other, that allows us to. I once had a CEO that. One of his board members gave him a copy of my journal, Gratitude Heals. And he said, I threw it in my office desk and thought, okay, yeah, I'll get to it. And then for some reason, maybe it was a year later, I'm not quite sure, he pulled it out and he started to journal. And it was transformative. And so that led to was for us to work with his senior team to really understand the science behind it, the positive psychology tenets and the neuroscience along with that. So it was that understanding, and his practice was journaling. That doesn't have to be everybody's practice. But that is how he was able to really move from being in a state of gratitude to part of his character trait. It had moved him along that continuum. And so a leader has to start with themselves. He has to start with themselves, and they have to realize that the impact it has on him or her. And then once you do that, then I believe the natural inclination is, I'm beginning to recognize more than I recognized before what someone in the organization is doing, how we're connecting the dots to what we do, to what we say our values are, to the products, services, etc. And so that's when you begin to walk the talk, so to speak. I had one client that every week, still to this day, she writes 5 thank you notes to employees. And what she gets in return is amazing, because she actually gets thank you notes back for the thank you notes that she wrote. She strikes such a chord with that social scientists call it this sense of elevation, this warm feeling in our heart, this feeling that, oh, you see me, right? And what I'm doing, you're telling me how it matters. So that is what leaders can do, not just in writing a thank you note, but and not just starting a meeting with what are we thankful for. I believe we have to actually follow certain practice techniques and model them. For instance, I always say we need to thank the invisible people. And we walk past them every day. We in an office, in a everywhere. We walk past invisible people. And we should one of the practices is when we walk past someone that we typically just don't look at, don't smile, and unusually they're doing some work. They're not looking up. They're maybe looking down, but you know that somehow they are contributing to the organization. You don't sign their paycheck. You don't check their time cards. They're just a contributor. And if we were to stop and acknowledge, say to that person, thank you so much for what you do because that allows us to support our clients, our patients, our community. Two things happen. One is that person, that invisible person, typically their posture changes. They stand up straighter, they make eye contact, and the other person that's impacted is you, the individual, because you're recognizing that this no cost approach to interacting with somebody in your organization, no cost, right? You were on your way to get a cup of coffee, you're still going to be on your way to get a cup of it's made you realize, why haven't I done this before? And so that's, thanking the invisible people, to me, is a great technique to demonstrate. If you're going to demonstrate that to any individual in your company, they're more likely to reciprocate that to someone else. And then think of the ripple impact. If your senior leaders see you as a CEO practicing something like that, you're more likely to get some of them to say, ooh, who's somebody that I might take for granted in on my team, or who's somebody that I probably have never shown how much I really am grateful for what they are contributing. And it just helps strengthen the connection between all of the dots, all the universe that is within our organization. And so it can be something at the beginning of the agenda, but I think it has to be the behaviors that make these leaders not only recognize how it's transforming them, but what a significant behavior of theirs that impacts one individual, the team, the department, the organization, and those we serve.
You're 100%. I was just thinking, especially organizations and leaders who have to go into so many meetings. I mean, you literally could have 6 to 8 meetings within a day. And regardless if you feel they're important meetings, not important meetings, whatever the case, but could you imagine that a meeting would start in the way that you just described, and then ended in the same way? Because most meetings, always start with, oh, hey, hi, everyone on the call, whatever. And then you hear, let's get started.
Right.
Let's get started. There's no connection. There's no anything, acknowledgement of human beings on the other side besides that hello, right? It's like, all right, let's get started. Then the meeting ends, and there's been sometimes, I will tell you, I have heard meetings that I'm not a part of, but I've just heard them, and I'm like, did that meeting just end? Like, that was it? Like, everyone just like literally closed, and that was that. So there was nothing that even acknowledged something. That simple way right there, besides of saying, hey, let's get started. I mean, let's get started.
Right.
Would you be jazzed to be in that meeting of, hey, let's get started?
Well, what I love about what you're saying is, just think about the mindset that you then have when you get into the agenda.
Yes.
Right? It's not like, oh my gosh, this is a meeting that I shouldn't be here and it's a waste of. But if we're starting off with the mindset of, hey, this is really going well, and we are very grateful for it, that just shifts our mindset to how we look at the rest of the agenda.
Right. And the way the meeting, yes, everyone knows they have to go to these meetings. But I just feel, and I even see, we talk about, one-on-ones in companies, and it has almost the same level of, all right, well, let's get started. We have an hour. And we don't even start with, how are you doing? Like,
Yeah.
how are you really doing?
Right.
What's going on? I know we got a lot to go over, but you and I get this time on our calendar, and or say something really not whatever that is. But I just feel in these organizations that we can really start with true gratitude, because there's a lot of uncertainty going on in the world. Companies are where people spend most of their
Yeah.
time, or work in general, and I think that if we can really, as leaders, demonstrate true gratitude. um,
Mm.
in the other part I was thinking of too, we have such a retention issue in companies. The research hasn't changed that drastically,
Right.
where at least the top three reasons that an employee will leave, and that could be from the top. So that's
Yeah.
not just possibly a lower level considered employee. It's basically because management or company
Yeah.
culture, or you're
Right.
you're feeling some sort of internal need that you're not getting. That I feel nothing's going to be perfect, but I do feel with the research and what you've shared today in regards to gratitude, true gratitude, and understanding that,
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a no cost. I don't have a lot of people on the podcast that can tell me a no cost. This is a no cost way that you can begin to make improvements in your organization and within yourself, and begin to model that. So
Right.
I love that so much.
The other thing I'd like to point out to your viewership is this subject of psychological safety in an organization.
Please.
Well, there's most of the time people are afraid to speak up because they're either going to be ostracized, laughed at, could possibly lose their job, and sometimes what they need to bring up could impact a life, or it could impact an important result. And so if you find a leader that can recognize somebody that is stepping into that place of courage to say, you know what, I think we committed an error, or if we continue to take, if we continue to follow this protocol, the likelihood of an error is very high. If you see a leader that sees somebody really stepping into that place and we greet that with gratitude, we're able to begin to lower the fear of speaking up about something that's really important. So it would sound something like, it must have been really difficult for you to bring that up in front of our team. And I want you to know I appreciate what it took to say that. So let's discuss this a little bit further. Or how do we avoid this error? Or if an error has occurred, um, how are we going to make sure that we don't do that again? So if we greet that person really speaking up because they feel passionate about what they're doing, because they know that something isn't going to go right, if we recognize what it takes for them to say that and we express gratitude towards that, then I think the other people sitting around the table that were like, that before had said, I'm not going to say that. Are you kidding me? Right? Um, they begin to see that there is that openness to having that kind of discussion, and the psychological safety begins to feel like a real thing.
I am so happy that you brought that up, because I think I see that too in many organizations where that happens, and the way that you phrase that in a way of gratitude
Mhm.
instead of a way of corporate policy, I think is truly a very, very strong connection that I think that was very important for not everyone to hear, but in particular leaders of companies from the very, very top to be able to hear that. Because if you have someone at the top that truly models what you just said, then that is going to trickle down to many other leaders. And I love how you connected that into gratitude, because I did not. And so that was really, really important
Thank you.
for
Good.
you to have said that. So so thank you so much for that. So, what is a good question that you may have for me?
Well, I had a list.
Oh my! Oh my God! How
um,
many questions did you have for me?
I have one. I have one. But I just started and ended up. So, my question is, and kind of using one of my unwords, what is an unspoken word about women in leadership today that we need to speak about?
What is an unspoken word that we need to begin to speak about?
Yes.
That's a really, really good question. I'm trying to think of what would be. It's funny because I thought you were going to ask me something around gratitude. I think I don't. I don't know. Let me see if I can answer it this way. I don't, in all honesty, have a specific word
Okay.
in mind. This is the good and the bad of maybe, me not knowing the question. But what I think, if this would be a fair response to your question, and let me know, and you tell me if it's not, and I will work harder. But I think what needs to be more spoken is what we mean behind our words. Because I think we leave too much to allow the word to explain how we're feeling than what's really behind the word. So that is really what I feel. I think we talk, and I think we come like, oh yeah, that person, they'll know what I mean about it. And I think we need to begin to do less of that, and not put that on other people to decipher what it is we're trying to say, or they know I'm thankful. They know that. And so I try to do better about that, because I want people to know specifically how I'm feeling, maybe a little too much at times. But I just think with my communication, I try to as much explain, not just using words that may try to soften something, or not that I intentionally want to be abrupt or something like that to them. But I feel we depend too much on words to explain something than to really go deeper. And I think with leaders, I think we can do better about that. Because I think we leave a lot up to the people that report to us to try to understand how we're feeling, what we're doing. And just to put some context, I've had people tell me a story of like, oh, I was talking to so-and-so and they said this. And I was like, well, what does that even mean? And they would say, I don't know, but I think it could be. And I'm like, for you to already have to say, I think, meaning that you're now having to put interpretation onto what someone
Oh my gosh. Yes.
has said.
Yes.
So, does that, can I get away with that answer?
Oh, I love that. Yes. I did not have any preconceived answers. But I really love where you went with that because we take these words, they're part of our environment, and if we are able to, what's the unspoken? Speak the unspoken is what you're saying.
Right. Exactly.
What great
Exactly.
connections, better connections we would have.
I would
Yes.
absolutely agree. So I definitely I couldn't put that into a word, but I do feel that as leaders and people and I know it's hard. It's really hard because we want to try to buffer something or soften something or
Right.
but I think if we could just say what it is we're feeling,
Yes.
I think that would really help a lot of miscommunications that happen,
Mm-hmm.
conflicts
Mm-hmm.
that happen, because you're getting to a real level of communication than trying to buffer the conversation
Yeah.
in a way that you feel, or to try to figure it out on what someone is
Right.
trying to say or ask of you to do.
Right. Right. Oh, there's a chapter in your book.
No.
That was awesome. Thank you.
Oh, no. Thank you for the question. I really definitely appreciate it. Well, a huge thank you to Linda Roszak Burton. I really appreciated you coming on to the show today and for sharing your unconventional journey. And to all of you, please, please take time to be grateful, to understand what being grateful is, and find your gratitude. And if this episode really hit a spot with you, please don't forget to follow and subscribe wherever you get your podcast so we can keep these unconversations going. Linda, thank you so much again.
Thank you, Dr. Allison.